So let's talk a little bit more about, juggling side hustles and different things you guys see out there. Maybe it's opportunities or things that you guys feel like a lot of people haven't tapped into. Is there anything, Brian, because I know you brought this up before we started recording, is there anything you're seeing out there you're like, man, somebody needs to, whether it's tap into this market, or here's how you kind of balance, if you have a 9 to 5 job and you want to start not only building an audience, because I think a lot of people, I think what it is, I think we touched on it a little bit, people are just afraid to they're afraid to fail from a perspective of, hey, nobody's reading my stuff. But they don't understand, I think I was in this place as well, and I'm sure maybe you guys were too, is you just got to keep hammering down, hammering down, hammering down, and then when you find that piece that works, then you just go one level deeper, and then you keep hammering that away, and then you figure out what the next branch off of that is. And I think people are afraid of that very first step of saying, you know what, this was my experience, and I'm just going to throw it out there. Maybe it connects with the person and maybe it doesn't, but man, this is the truth, and I know I can stand by this. I can look at it tomorrow and be like, yep, that still happened. So I just want to know what you guys are seeing out there where people are, I don't know whether they're going too wide, or somebody that has a job that you're like, man, there's so many easier ways to say, hey, create a course, create a product, create something along those lines.
And just to clarify the question, so I'm hearing either there's creators who are afraid to create, right? Take that first step, and maybe people don't like the content. And then there's a lot of creators I've spoken to, and this may be an interesting topic because we've both, Harris and I have both gone through it, is creators who are afraid to take the leap to do it full time, right? Like what's like at what point I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this who are in their 9 to 5. They're not loving it, but they're there because it's stable, right? And the creator life is exciting, but it's not stable. And so, how do you A, create stability, and B, get comfortable enough that you have the skill set and that you can generate the income, so that you become stable to do while you do what you love. And that to me is a topic that I don't think is talked about that often.
It's not, and I think also some people I think get kind of confused on, so how do I build up my audience on Twitter, on LinkedIn, for me to be able to say I'm going to put this product together, and now I can go on and hammer about this topic, and create some sort of business around it where it generates me maybe a couple grand a month, and then I can still keep my job and still keep doing this thing until this side hustle sort of overlaps and takes over my income that I'm making in my business. I think that's the other piece of it, is like, how do you go about building that audience while you're at a 9 to 5 job?
I feel like it's like a tough push and pull. It's like, should you start building an audience before you actually have something? Or like, do you need to have something to take your time building the audience? Both of those can be true. I don't know. It's like a really interesting, like I actually think trying to build an audience and working to build an audience before you actually have something to sell is like really, really valuable. Like I think it makes it less quote scary for you. But then at the same time, it's like, yeah, but I might get bored because this is like level B, like option B. And yeah, I got other stuff that's going to, so it's a really interesting like push and pull of whether that's a good or a bad thing. I'd be curious for your guys' perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's a new way of entrepreneurship, and by that I mean if you look at I hate calling it old way because it's still new, but like you've got before I did Twitter, I did a fintech. I built a fintech out, and so what the traditional way is like, hey, I know this pain, I know a customer who has a pain, and I've got this solution, right? And then you bring an MVP, bring it to market, test. Hey, does the customer want that solution, right? Harrison and I are talking about the totally new way of entrepreneurship that's different, where we say, okay, instead of finding a pain, finding a solution, and then taking the market risk that the market wants it, right? There's market risk. Does the market want it? And execution risk. Can you do it right? We're essentially eliminating the market risk and just taking on the execution risk. Like, are you doing it right? And here's why. Because what we're doing is building an audience around a topic that you care about, right? And that's important. We can talk about niching down, but that's say you take 3 or 4 topics that you're interested in, find creator content fit, right? Which topic are you most interested, passionate about, excited about? Take that topic, build an audience around it by putting content out, distributing it, put an audience around it. While you're building that audience, then you start to just pay attention to the different data points you hear out, right? You might tweet about one pain and everyone reacts to it, right? And where you tweet about another one there where people don't. And so, okay, that's interesting. That tweet got a lot of attention. Let's turn it into a thread. Oh, that thread got a lot of attention. Interesting. Let's take the thread and put it into a newsletter, right? And at the bottom, have a little call to action. It says, okay, respond with your pain points, right? Oh, wow, I got 4 responses. People must be really passionate about it. And so this step, like a tweet is like a micro MVP. A thread is a little bit bigger. A newsletter is a little bit bigger. And then a newsletter turns into an ebook on Gumroad, right? Oh, wow, the sales crushed on ebook. Now it's taken to a course, right?
I love that. I love how you broke
Um,
that down, by the way. That's fucking perfect.
Well, it's amazing because it's almost foolproof, right? Because if any step in that chain breaks, right? Let's say at the thread doesn't take off. You go, okay, great. Let's just write another bunch of tweets and try it again at essentially no effort, no cost.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I love that. You broke down the tweet into the micro MVP and then that's awesome. Yeah, I think one thing I feel like people at a a 9 to 5 need to also realize, like, you've already got the income piece kind of taken care of. You're not like hungry for money right away. So while you're making money at work, build an audience and talk about that thing you can, like I always say when I talk to my friends that are non business people and I'm talking to them about, hey, check out this idea, or what do you think about this? What do you think? It's just like a blank wall. And I'm like, that's the wrong people to talk to about this, right? But when you take that topic and you say, there is people out here in this Twitter world, LinkedIn world that actually care about this. Now let me start talking about it, because I could talk about it all day long and I don't get tired of it. And if somebody gets tired of it, they just unfollow me, and that's cool too. But at the same time, when you get to that point where people start listening and start responding and be like, how did you do this? How did you do that? Then you're like, oh shit, now I can build around that. I can, like I said, I could talk about it all day long. And then you start putting, like you said, putting that product together. So I feel like people who have a job actually kind of have an advantage, other than the person who's been, doing entrepreneurship, had a failed company. Now they need the money. Now they put out a product. Nobody's listening. Nobody's buying. Nobody's doing anything. Now they're trying to build the audience. They're almost like reverse passion building when you just like, you don't feel good about it anymore. And I think that's where a lot of people feel demotivated after a period of time. So I feel like if you are in that 9 to 5, if somebody's listening is that 9 to 5, start hammering away at something you're excited about, whatever that is. Maybe it's, like you did onboarding. And I mean, I would have never thought about that, but holy shit, it's a big market, because every single company out there, especially in the work from home situation, really needs to dial in on that, because the experience of somebody coming in and starting their work and not knowing where to turn and who to talk to, and what the expectations of the job are, that's a huge thing, where somebody just has to offer them 10 extra grand a year and they're going to go to the next place, and hopefully they'll give them a better experience.
Right. And I think that's a really good point around like building it while you're doing your 9 to 5. So the worst salesperson is the desperate salesperson. If you're already getting your money from a different perspective, then you're just going to be so much less desperate. And I think that part is like so huge. So like having savings that you put away if you go full time, or having a 9 to 5 while you do, like being it so you're not like, please buy my thing. I'll do anything. Please buy. It's like nobody's going to ever buy from that person. Being able to be in confidence, like if you don't want it, cool. But like if you want it, here it is. I know it provides a lot of value. Like that gives you such a leg up from a sales perspective, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
I think people have an advantage in 9 to 5 in the sense that it takes time to build an audience. Like when you write a thread, you can't just pump out 4 threads a day. You essentially need to give it time to breathe. You need time to meet people, to build distribution. Money to me is time. Some other things, but it buys me time. It's runway that I have, um, essentially until I need to sell the next product. And so, to Harris's point, if I have money, that means I'm not desperate.
I think I want to hammer that home, that it takes time, because Brian has built it about as quickly as I've ever seen, and it took waking up at 5 a.m. and working till 11 p.m. every single night for months on end. So I think that is like such a really important aspect to hammer home. Like you have to play the long game with building an audience. If you're trying to do it quick, it's just not going to work. I haven't seen anybody do it much quicker than Brian, and like what it took was 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day. So I think that's really important to hammer home.
Yeah, and also there are ways to do it quickly, right? But when you do that, you tend to give up value. Not always, but sometimes. And so, for example, like I tomorrow I could do a 10 Chrome extension thread. And the question is, does that get me 100,000 followers that I want specifically for to sell my product, right? It depends what game you're playing because there's a ton of different games that are going on and everyone's playing a different game. That's the interesting part. Um, and so the if that aligns with the game I'm playing, say like for Z, actually, if you want to get some fascinating guests on your podcast, you need social proof. And social proof you could get through rapid follower account, which you could get through a 10 Chrome extension thread, and that would make sense given your game, right? But for Harris and I, where we're trying to sell products specific to our niche, that doesn't work. Those rules don't work in our game. And so we need to essentially have a different type of content because the content is essentially the hook that gets the specific person in. The type of person we want to get is the people who will buy our product. Whereas I'm putting words in your mouth, Z, but if the type of person you want to hook may be a podcast guest, you're going to use a different hook and different type of content to attract a different person than I would. And so you may be able to benefit from hooks that have a more rapid follower growth.